What's up, everybody? So a few of you have actually mentioned that, aside from just the bees, that, I do a lot of interesting things. Or at least, I guess a lot of you have mentioned that they're interesting to me. I guess they're just normal things, but some of them, yes, I guess are very interesting. So anyway, the point is, a couple of you have kind of said, hey, you should record some other videos or do some other types of videos, not just the bees. So I thought about it, and I was actually talking to a coworker yesterday, and we were talking about, the videos and some of the stuff, and one of the things that he mentioned was that there was a channel, a person that did some videos, doing, like, they did like engine repair and things like that, and he found it really interesting to kind of watch the process and things like that. So anyway, between that and having that conversation with him yesterday, I thought about it, and I said, you know what, maybe I should kind of branch out and start doing a couple of other videos. So that's what we're going to do today. I got up this morning about 6 o'clock, got everything ready and headed out to the water. Me, my father, and my son actually all went out on the boat. Did some bass fishing. 3 generations of fishermen out there. The fish didn't stand a chance. Well, actually, apparently we didn't stand a chance. My dad, he did have one blow up on a top water popper that he was running, maybe 2. There might have been 2, and that was it. Other than that, nothing at all. It was pretty bad. So we're back. However, there's a few things that I want to do to the boat, a few things that I need to do, a few things that I've been wanting to do and kind of noticed lately. One of the things is the fact that the last time I was out on the water, not this trip because I really didn't even use the outboard, it was a smaller pond that we were in. But the last time I was out on the river, I noticed that my Tach didn't seem to be working correctly. It was showing that the engine was revving way higher than I know by ear. It really wasn't. So I'm pretty sure there's an issue there. We're going to look into that, try to figure out what's going on. And then there's a button that switches, because I have dual fuel tanks in this boat, but I only have one fuel gauge. I have a switch that switches between the left and right tanks. It's an old switch. I actually, a couple years back, redid the panel. I didn't do a great job. Honestly, it was one of these things where it needed to be done. I had to replace it. Everything was really bad. It was kind of get it done and get it quick and then do a better job later. And later became later. And that later never happened. But you know what? It's not bad. I mean, I say that, but it really isn't. It really isn't bad. But that switch is one of the original switches out of the original panel, and it's in really bad shape. So sometimes it doesn't work. It doesn't switch very cleanly. So I've got a replacement switch. I'm going to get that put in. Like I said, I want to look at that Tach, see if I can figure that out, and then. I don't know, there's probably a few other things that I'm completely forgetting about right now, but that's what we're going to do. So if you guys want to stick around, hopefully you'll like this kind of video. If so, definitely leave me a comment. Actually, that's one thing before we get into the rest of this. If you guys, I've been putting up a lot of these videos, and originally the whole beehive thing, like I said, it really started as a way to document the process for my son. But it kind of grew a little bit from there. So, but the point is, it is a lot of work. It's a lot of work to do things. When I go out and do a hive inspection, for example, something that could take 10 or 15 minutes takes an hour or more, because I got to set up the camera equipment, I got to move cameras around, I got to show different things, talk about different things. It definitely slows the process down. Then of course, once all that's done, I still have to take the footage and load it into the laptop, edit it, and that's not even counting any of the technical issues that we discussed in the last video. So it is a lot of extra work. So one of the ways, I want it, I don't know how to word it, but I guess to me, you know, I want it to feel worth it. And one of the ways that I'll know that it's worth it is, you know, if you guys are liking the videos. So make sure you go ahead and click on that like button. Also subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed. Once you're subscribed, you'll have that bell. You can click on that. That'll turn on notifications, so anytime I post a new video, you'll get notified of it. You don't have to watch it, obviously, but at least you'll know that it's there if you want to check it out. And like I said, leave a comment, good, bad. You know, if you see something that I'm doing that, you know, you think I should do a different way or could have done better, or if, you know, even if you just want to say that you like the video, or have suggestions for other videos, you know, that I might want to do in the future, whatever the case may be, it doesn't really matter. Just, you know, leave a comment, let me know that you're actually watching and enjoying the videos, and I'll try to keep them coming. The issue that I'm having with the Tach. Now, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to where I really noticed the problem was, you know, 3/4 throttle or above. Basically the Tach was winding out and showing me that I was hitting way above 7,000 RPM, which I know is not possible. The prop that I have on here, it's a Trophy Plus 24 pitch prop. I mean, if I would have been spinning that thing at over 7,000 RPM, I'd have easily been hitting, you know, probably 70 mile an hour or so at least. And I definitely wasn't. So I think, you know, we were like 55-ish or something like that. So at the lower RPMs, I don't know that it's going to make that much of a difference. But I guess what I'm going to do, my thought process here is basically, the first thing I want to do is just look at the wiring, see if I can figure out. I have an idea of where it's coming off of on the outboard. You know, there's two coils in the top of the outboard. There's a stator coil and a charging coil, and I'm guessing that probably the charging coil, it probably runs to like a regulator or something first, but probably the pulses coming out of that regulator is what the Tach is counting. So we're going to see if we can find that wire, and then depending on what we do, I do have a timing gun, hopefully that works. I only say that because it seems like anytime I go to find something like that I haven't used in forever, I hook it up and it doesn't work. But if it does, I can use that as a tachometer to get an accurate number. It's a digital timing light, so it has a tach on it. So I can get an accurate number there and compare it to the gauge if need be and see how far off it is. Like I said, at low RPMs, I'm not sure if it's going to be off or how much it's going to be off. But the other thing I can do is, you know, if worse comes to worse, if that is what we've got, if it is the charging coil going into the regulator, if there's some sort of an issue there, which is, I mean, that's kind of the most likely thing that I can think of, is that, you know, there's extra noise or something that the Tach is seeing as pulses that really aren't pulses. But anyway, any of that kind of stuff, I can go in the house, I can grab my oscilloscope, throw that on there, see what the waveform actually looks like, and try to clean that up and or at least confirm that there's an issue. And if so, you know, order a replacement regulator if that's what that is, or whatever we find, we'll figure it out. So the first thing I'm going to do is get up here and get under the dash and see what I can see. Okay guys, so first thing I want to point out is that the metal floor drain that is currently on my back right now is about 4,000 degrees. Just putting that out there. So anyway, so here we are. I'm looking up, let's see. I don't know if you guys can kind of, whoa. That right there is the back of the Tach. I don't know how well you guys can see that or not, but this, I recognize the purple is definitely the ignition. The black is obviously the ground. The blue is for the lights when you turn the cockpit lights on. So that means that gray wire right there is the one that has to have the Tach signal on it. And it is coming back here to this plug for this harness, and going back over here, which is going back over to my yeah, easy spot to get in and out of there. So it's going back to my my controller, and then obviously is probably running from, sorry, I think you guys were looking at something over there. Pay attention, would you? So anyway, I think that's going on back to the engine. So we're gonna go pop the engine and see what we got back there. Okay, so here we go. So this is the outboard itself. So let me see if I can get you guys kind of set up somewhere so that you can kind of Alright, so anyway, what we're going to do is well, first thing I'm going to do is drop this down and take it off the stand here. Well, actually pull it up and drop the stand there, and we're going to drop this down a little bit so we can see it to work on a little better. And that's about as far as I can go because I got the front of the trailer jacked up pretty high right now, so but that should be plenty. So now we're going to get up in here, and somewhere I've got a release. There it is. Pop that off. Release these. Get that off. And you know what I just realized, guys? So I'm still wearing my fishing shirt, and I'm about to get my hands all kinds of greasy. So I'm gonna go in the house, change my shirt, and then I'll be back. Ta-da! It's like magic. So before anyone asks, the reason I said, well, that was my fishing shirt. As I said, we were out fishing. Before any of you ask, no, it's not like my lucky fishing shirt or anything to do with that. Anybody who would have been on the boat with us this morning would have full well known that there was no luck involved in wearing that shirt. Anyway, the reason is it's kind of a special material. It's long sleeve, first of all, but it's made like very, very cool. So it feels very cool. In fact, like right now, it's actually, I feel a lot hotter now than I did earlier when I was wearing that shirt and had the long sleeves on. And it basically acts as, it's like a SPF 50 or something equivalent sun protection. So it keeps the sun off of you. And then I have the, you know, little, whatever you call it, scarf, I guess, thing. That then I can put up around my face or over my ears, underneath my hat, so that if it's really hot out, I don't have to use sunscreen. I'm not opposed to sunscreen. In fact, I'm actually going to stop and go get someone in a moment because, like I said, I can feel that the sun is really beating down. But anyway, but when I'm fishing, I don't like to use sunscreen because A, I don't want to get it all over the boat. Not that that's a really big deal. It's an old boat. But B, I don't want to get it all over my hands because then I'm touching the fishing line and touching the lures, and then I might not get a bite like this morning. Yeah, so anyway, ta-da, I'm back again. So now I'm well covered in sunscreen, which means I'll feel even hotter. Interesting fact, I don't know how, if you guys know this or not, but a lot of people think sunscreen works by like reflecting the UV rays or whatever. It actually doesn't. Sunscreen, the way that it actually works is it absorbs the UV radiation and converts it into heat. So it absorbs it and converts it to heat before it has a chance to get into your skin. So that's how it works. I mean, it saves your skin, but at the same time, it actually makes you feel a lot hotter because it's converting all of that UV into heat. So there you go, tip of the day. So let's get back to this. I'm just going to take a look here and see if I can see that gray wire. Hopefully they've kept the same coloring scheme between the front and back. Usually they do. They're usually pretty good about things like that. So let's see what we can see. So this is actually the module that kind of controls everything. It's running to the spark plugs, everything like that. There's a temperature alarm, or an alarm wire. It wouldn't necessarily have to be temperature, but that's power. Now this, I almost thought that looked like a regulator, and it may be that guy right there, but I'm not sure on that. That may just be, there's your starting solenoid. So, oh look, that's interesting. We've got a mud dauber bee's nest on one of my spark plug wires. Alright, so let's take a look at this other side. Okay, so there's a temperature sensor on one of the heads with an alarm wire on it. And this is the, over here we've got the warning module for the oil injection system, which actually is removed off of this engine. I'll tell you a story about that in a moment. And I don't see anything else up here. We've got something. Something, that's always good, right? It's interesting too. The cover, flywheel cover broke off there. Never noticed that before. Interestingly enough, the previous owner must have done this, because I see there's actually JB Weld on it, and I guess the JB Weld is either deteriorated or whatever. That won't hurt anything right now. I mean, it'll rattle around a little bit, but won't hurt anything. If the oil injection was on here, there's actually a reservoir tank that mounts right here, and we'd have to take care of that, but not that we won't necessarily fix it, but for right now I'm not worried about it. So, from the looks of things, I'm gonna say that our charging coil is coming down here, so we have got, okay, so we've got two packs. So this is a V6 engine, so there's a pack, there's an ignition pack for one side of the motor, and then I just noticed there's another ignition pack for the other side of the motor on the back. Alright guys, so here's the deal. My camera overheated. It was sitting right out in the sun. I told you guys it was really hot out here. But anyway, so I've been looking at this, and again, you know, seeing the coils and the way they come down, basically what I've come to the conclusion of is if you look right there, see those two yellow wires? Those I'm pretty sure are coming off the charging coil. And initially when I first looked at this, I looked at this and said, hey, that looks like a regulator. Now I'm pretty much 90% positive that yes, this is definitely the regulator. So if you see, basically I've got two yellow cords coming in, or wires going in here, and then I've got a red coming here, and then the back side of it's grounded over here. This, initially I was looking at and I thought, oh well, that's the ground. And then I was like, well, wait a minute, no, because I've got this yellow tied in here, so that can't be a ground. So that's when it dawned on me, this wire that looks quite black, I'm pretty sure is actually gray. I think that's the same gray. That's from the Tach. That's counting the pulses, and in this case, it's counting it from this side. I am pretty sure that what we're going to find is that that's our culprit, this regulator right here. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to move, because both of these should be identical. This is just a regulator, which means it's taken, remember you got AC, so you got both sides of it regulating it down, and there's the ground, the actual ground back here. So it's basically just clipping it off and making it a DC. So these two should be interchangeable. So what I'm going to do, I guess first, or my plan of attack is, basically what I'm going to do is first I'm going to hook it up, because I don't want to go through this and then find out, oh well, I can't tell if it's working or not, or think that it's working and really it's not. So the first thing I guess I'm going to do is go ahead and pull the boat over to where I can get the muffs on it so I can get the engine fired up. And then what I'll do is, with the timing light on it, I'll check the tach, look at and compare it to the tach on the dash, see if they match. If they don't, which I suspect they won't, or at least if I rev it up a little bit, I hope they won't. And then what we'll do is we'll switch this over to the other side of the regulator and see if the same problem is there. And if it's not, then that tells me, at that point I'm pretty much positive that this regulator is bad. I suppose it could be the coil, but I think if the coil was bad, we would just lose it altogether. I'm pretty sure. So hopefully it's just the coil or the rectifier, which is this guy, and we'll just replace him. And then I may or may not go ahead and hook the scope up just to verify, depending on what I see and what happens. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the boat pulled around to the other side of the house, and get the hose and the muffs hooked up and get everything ready to fire it up. Well guys, there are so many times that I make little comments about things, and I really wish I was wrong, but so many times I'm right. Yeah. So let's have a look here. Yeah. So that right there is one of my batteries, which I know is charged. I tried it on the other one just in case, but again, I know this one's good. And my timing light clipped on, and here's my timing light, and nothing. It's dead. Yeah, completely dead. I'm not even joking. Can't make this stuff up. Alright guys, so here's the deal. I took the timing light in the house, pulled it all apart, looked at it. I was hoping it was something really simple. You know, I know it has a couple diodes in there, probably for, you know, reverse polarity protection and stuff like that. I was hoping maybe there was a fuse in there. Tore it apart, looked at everything. I don't see anything wrong, nothing obvious anyway. All the caps that are in there, like filter caps and stuff, all that look good. The board's a multi-layer board. There's a lot of surface mount ICs and stuff on the part that's not actually working, so can't really tell anything about that. Don't have any schematics or anything, of course, so basically it's a lost cause. So I gave it a little bit of thought, trying to figure out what we could possibly do to proceed without the timing light, and I did have a thought. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get it on the muffs, get it started up. I'm going to pull the sense for that tachometer off of the regulator coil, and basically what I'll do is I'll put it on the one side, see what the RPMs are reading when the engine's just idling, and then I'll put it on the other side and see if that reading changes, if it normalizes or goes lower, because, you know, obviously if it's reading high or whatever, we should know that. If it normalizes, goes lower, then we know that yes, there's something wrong with that side of the regulator, and then we can go ahead and replace that regulator. If not, if it's doing the same thing or whatever, then I might have to get the scope out and look at the waveform and see if that tells us anything. So that's what we're going to do. So what I'm doing now is I'm just pulling that sense wire off and leaving the yellow coil wire on. Obviously. Alright, so now we can put that on, see what the tach reads, and then flip it over, put it on the other coil, see what the tach reads there. Alright, let's get the muffs on it. Alright, now that we're making a mess all over the yard, so when I put the Tach on that other terminal, I get nothing on, no readout whatsoever. So apparently it's not working the way that I thought it was. That's bad. Well, not really, but kinda. Now I gotta figure out how to diagnose it from here. But first, I'll put it back together. So here we go. We got our probe hooked up. Obviously, it's not actually touching the thing yet. We'll worry about that after we get the motor started. But I do have one side grounded out, and then we got a scope over here, which unfortunately I'm going to have to. Oh yeah, there we go. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get the intensity that I needed. I still can't read very well. Yeah, that's gonna prove to be interesting, I can tell you that. I don't have a sunshade for this thing. Let me see what I can do about shading that. Okay, so not exactly the best, but it's better. So let's see what we can do. What's up, guys? So that didn't go as planned. Well, it went as planned, just not with the results that I was hoping for. So basically, to kind of recap, so I did check the output of the charging circuit, seeing what was going back to the battery, and that looked good. So I don't think it's a problem with that. I don't think there's an issue there. I don't know, but anyway, it may just be that that's not working the way that I was expecting it to or thinking it would. I'm not exactly sure, to be honest. I guess I need to see if I can find what regulator this outboard takes, and then see if I can happen to find a schematic of it, just to kind of get a better idea. But anyway, honestly, at this point, that's neither here nor there, because looking at the output of the regulator that was going to the Tach, what is feeding the Tach, to me, looks solid, looks good. So anyway, getting back to the point, if you looked, I checked some other things, so you may have seen some places where things got a little crazy, but basically, once I got everything adjusted, if you saw those pulses, and then I went out a little bit wider just to make sure, I watched them for a little bit. If there was something weird happening there, what I would have expected to see were pulses that didn't make sense. So in other words, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this. Normally you would have the engine, you know, and each one of those pulses is showing, you know, where there's a revolution, basically. Well, in that case, it's actually another magnet on the charging coil. But in theory, there should be, the way that it's set up, there should be one of those pulses for every cylinder, I believe, if I'm thinking properly. So that's going to be 6 pulses for 1 revolution. So every 6 of those was 1 turn of the motor. So what I would have kind of expected to see, or what I was thinking I was going to see, was, you know, this fairly steady, even pulses of the motor itself, and then I was thinking there was going to be like noise in there, like there were going to be mixed in with those, like some that weren't steady. So in other words, if I saw, you know, if you put it to the point where, you know, let's say there's a pulse every ½ inch, and then there's a couple where you see them, you know, in between, like at a ¼ inch or whatever, that's where you know, wait a minute, something's not adding up there. There's something, there's noise, or there's something that's causing an extra pulse. I didn't see that. Everything looked pretty steady, which is telling me that I think my output is actually okay. Again, without digging in a little bit deeper and figuring out exactly what's going on there, I can't be certain, but it certainly seems that way. Really, that brings me to a couple of possibilities. One is that the Tach itself is bad, which honestly it seems a little strange, but at the same time, I did just replace 2 gauges on the dash. One was my trim, the trim position sensor, and then at the same time, well, I say the same time, to be honest with you, I don't know, because I don't really use the trim tilt or the trim position gauge that much, so who knows when it actually quit working. I may just never really noticed it. But anyway, I did also have to replace a fuel gauge. As I mentioned earlier, I do have 2 tanks in that boat, and I switch between them. And originally, what was really kind of odd is originally I didn't have any fuel gauge reading. So I thought, okay, well, that's really strange. So I replaced the gauge, because doing all the testing for the gauge, everything said the gauge is wrong, or the gauge is bad. So I tested, or I replaced the gauge, and it still didn't work. So then I started looking, and it turns out that the fuel sensors, or the, you know, their floats that send the fuel level from the fuel tanks, both of the fuel senders were bad, which is really strange. But interestingly enough, I replaced those, and just to verify and double check, I put the old gauge back and hooked it up. The old gauge was not working either. So both fuel senders and both fuel tanks and the fuel gauge all went bad. And in the same respect, like I said, the trim position. So it almost makes me wonder if there was something at some point electrical that happened. I don't know what that could have been. Like I said, I do have a charging system that I put on. I've never had any problems with it. So I don't think it was that. I guess it's possible that at some point when it was running, if something went haywire on the coil or something, it could have done something weird. I don't know. But anyway, all of that, having those failures, those electrical failures, makes me kind of wonder if maybe the Tach has failed in some way as well. I don't know. I guess what I'm going to do at this point is kind of get back to basics, I guess, and get on Google and do a little research and see if I can figure out exactly how that system works, how the regulator works. Make sure that I shouldn't be saying the same thing on both sides of that regulator, which is kind of what I suspected, but I'm not. So again, that's kind of weird. I just want to make sure that that's not the case, that there's nothing weird happening there. So yeah, basically at this point I just need to get on Google and do a bunch of research, try to see if I can figure out where to go from here. So anyway, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do in terms of the Tach. I gotta think about it a little bit more. You know, I might attack it again tomorrow, do some research this evening, and just kind of go from there and figure out what I'm going to do. I'm not even sure if I'm going to post this video, to be honest. You know, like I said, I talked to a few people, and you know, they wanted more videos like this. They wanted to see like some of the other stuff that I do. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's not really all that exciting. You know, it's just normal stuff. But you know, at the same time, like I said, I talked to a coworker the other day, and one of the things that he mentioned was there was one guy that does a lot of work on engines and stuff, and he really enjoyed, you know, watching that. So, you know, that's the kind of thing that you know, what I've been doing here with the motor. I think, you know, he would probably certainly enjoy that. So I guess there's some value in it. If there is, you know, again, add a comment. If I do post this, you know, let me know that you do like this kind of stuff, or if you want more of it, and I'll definitely, you know, keep posting them up and keep doing them and keep shooting them.